Back in January of this year, I talked briefly about the Sony-Marvel deal in my Venom vs. Catwoman at the movies. This is what I said.
Venom is actually a movie that I hate to admit that I wanted to hate a hell of a lot more than I did. The whole movie is essentially a giant fuck you to Marvel. They are rushing out Spider-Man Far From Home, and when that movie comes out, that'll be the end of the Sony-Marvel alliance. It will have to be renegotiated, meaning either Marvel will have to fold Venom into the MCU so that Sony can make money putting Spider-Man and Venom in the same movie, or break the alliance, meaning Sony can again do whatever they want with Spider-Man, including put him in a Venom movie. It's a lose-lose for Marvel. Venom made more money than Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Sony has shown a complete willingness to run him into the ground. Sure, Into the Spider-Verse was good, but we've seen enough to clearly say that that movie is the exception, not the rule. With Jared Leto's Morbius on the way and a Venom vs. Carnage movie, Venom represents an unearned victory for Sony, and they will waste the opportunity it grants him so quickly it will make your head spin. And at the end of the day, I simply hope Sony can prove me wrong.
Well, it finally happened, the moment I dreaded. As reported by Deadline, Spider-Man is no longer part of the MCU. The deal was for 2 solo movies and 3 appearances in MCU movies, and with Far From Home done, it appears as if a new deal needs to be made. Marvel wanted to expand the deal to a 50-50 split, meaning they would share the cost of future movies as well as the revenues, half and half. Not only that, but this deal would extend to all Spider-Man properties Sony has, potentially stopping both Venom 2 and Morbius in their tracks. This deal would give Marvel controlling stake in Sony's most profitable franchise. Sony could no longer move forward on any project in the Spider-Man canon without Marvel's say-so. It's easy to see why Sony would say no to this. They already gave Marvel control of their flagship character. Giving Marvel control of all of it could be crippling. Marvel could potentially stop all Sony Spider-Man projects and just use Sony's characters in their own movies, and Sony couldn't stop them under this new deal. Obviously, Sony would never agree to this, but it's also very easy to see why Marvel would want this. Marvel has the rights to Spider-Man in every form except movies. With Sony making its Venom movies, and Sony more than happy to muddy the waters when asked if Venom is part of the MCU.
But it will still all be in the same world, and they will be connected to each other as well.
So there is a chance that Tom Holland as Spider-Man will pop up somewhere?
There's a chance.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
It gives Sony the opportunity to tarnish the Spider-Man brand, which could leak onto the MCU brand as a whole. The Marvel brand did actually take a very soft hit from Dark Phoenix, which is just a Fox movie that Disney released because why not? It was already made. If one movie could do a little ding, Sony's whole Venomverse could mean serious damage to the quality the brand has worked so hard to maintain. Here's some facts. Do you think Sony cares about Spider-Man outside the money he can earn them? Now again, do you think Disney cares about Spider-Man outside the money he can earn them?
All right, now get out there and make me some goddamn money!
The only party that really cares about Spider-Man besides the money he can earn them is Kevin Feige, who obviously loves Marvel because he took Marvel to the level it's at now. You don't do that without passion. However, at the end of the day, Kevin Feige runs Marvel, which is owned by Disney, and that makes Kevin Feige just another guy at Disney. A guy who runs their most valuable studio, so a really important guy, but a guy all the same. So we are just left with Sony and Disney having to figure out the money issue because that's what's important to them. Feige certainly has some input, but he's not going to be a deal maker or breaker. It's easy to say Marvel is being greedy, but you cannot call Marvel greedy and not call Sony equally greedy here, or really blame them. They are businesses. They exist to make money. However, it's hard to see how either company gets a real benefit from exiting the deal. The real question is, what dollar amount and what level of control are they willing to agree to? It seems highly unlikely that the deal will end because of this hurdle. They've reached an impasse, but it's not impossible for minds to change. So far, we've only heard Sony say on the matter. Disney Marvel has stayed quiet on the whole thing. Sony's statements are quick to throw Marvel under the bus and blame them for the failure of the negotiation. However, they are also careful not to attack too much, saying simply that Kevin Feige is too busy to work on Spider-Man stuff. Of course, this flies in the face of Disney's offer to give him more control of Spider-Man stuff and is obviously just a made-up story. It makes sense that Sony wouldn't want to deal with 50-50 sharing of all Spider-Man characters, but surely an agreement could be made. Perhaps include in the contract that Marvel must co-produce an independent Spider-Man movie property every year so that Sony isn't forgotten about. At this point, Sony has proven that they may make good movies if they give their creators control, but whenever they get their corporate hands on the property, they turn it to shit. For a citation, see The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, and Venom. It was profoundly wise of them to make a deal with Marvel in the first place. I have to give them props for back then recognizing their limits. Now we have come full circle. Rather than simply ignore Marvel's offer, they should try to renegotiate the whole thing. I've read that Sony gave Marvel a counter offer of 70-30. I've also read that Sony walked away from the table when Disney offered 50-50. So the only thing we really have confirmed is the 50-50 offer. People are frequently bringing up how Disney has 100% of the merchandising rights and won't share. Well, Marvel bought those rights a while ago. If Sony wants to bring it up in a counter offer, they can, but don't expect Disney Marvel to volunteer something they own outright and don't need Sony's help to produce. It looks like Tom Holland's Spider-Man may die from the same thing that killed Ben Affleck's Batman and probably Henry Cavill's Superman: contract negotiations. I do think it is very likely that Disney and Sony will come to some sort of agreement because this deal is too mutually beneficial for them to just leave. Of course, we could also just wait for Sony to run Spider-Man into the ground again and have Disney buy them when they are almost worthless and watch as Disney comes even closer to becoming a complete monopoly. That's always fun too.
He did it.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.